This is not blaming teachers. This is not blaming administrators. It's not blaming central administrators. It's how do we bring everyone together in a coherent and strategic fashion so that student outcomes can be supported and enhanced. So the first thing I mentioned, the surveys that we conducted with teachers and principals. And the surveys looked at curriculum and instruction. They looked at human capital. They looked at special education and English language learning. This is just a snapshot. It's a lot of data there, but I'll tell you the takeaway from this slide, which is that teachers and principals believe that high impact strategies are going on. So that's a good thing. Teachers, one of the key components of effective instruction is teacher self-efficacy, that they feel like they have the power, the tools to be effective, and the data from the survey suggests that they do. Little less confident when it comes to providing services to students with disabilities and students where English is not their first language. So you can, again, this is hard data to see, but they believe that they're high expectations. So but where you start to see some drop off is in some of the specific areas or strategies in supporting those students. And again, I'm going through this fairly quickly. If there are particular questions that we're happy to answer. But the big takeaway is there. Still sense of self-efficacy, but a little less confident than in sort of the general education setting. But then when we go and we went into the 171 classrooms across the district, we started to see something a little bit different. And basically the big takeaway is that our observers did not see the level of implementation of high-impact instructional strategies that we would like to see. And again, this is not surprising, and it's not blaming teachers, but it is an explanation for, at least a partial explanation for why student achievement and student outcomes are not yet where we want them to be. So these are several areas. There's many more in the report, but there's several areas that we looked at. I'm going to just blow up 3 to give you examples. You can see that generally the percentages are quite low. This is 70%, and you can see the percentages are in the 15, mostly in the 15 to 20%. I'm going to blow up just 3 of those just to give you an example. So these are 3 strategies that research shows when implemented effectively, student achievement will go up. So we want to see these numbers go up over time. So this is differentiation. This is sort of the holy grail of instruction. In other words, that teachers are able to adjust their style, the supports that they're giving to students to meet the students' needs. So we saw that only in 15% of all classrooms. So this is elementary through high school. In our report, we break this out by level. Interdisciplinary or real-world instructional examples, just what it sounds like, so that the teacher's bringing in examples from real world. They're using, if they're teaching a science lesson, they're applying it like the speakers before to the zoo, or how this is important in the medical field, or being able to connect it to some real-life example. And checking for understanding, this is a huge, huge piece. So basically, this is not giving a test at the end of a unit and then giving a grade. This is, as the lesson is going on, that I have tools, I have strategies where I'm making sure that each one of my students is understanding what I'm trying to convey, and that I'm making adjustments along the way. Really critical skill. So again, just in a quarter of the classrooms that we visit. This is a level of engagement. So what our observers did is, when in each classroom that they went into, they estimated the percentage of students who were engaged in whatever lesson or activity was taking place, okay? So the left bar is 0 to 60% of the students in a classroom were engaged in that particular lesson, and you can see almost half, basically half of the classrooms that we went into, 0 to 60% of the students were engaged. The middle bar is 60 to 85% of the students are engaged, and the last bar is basically all students in the classroom were engaged. Now, we don't expect this bar, the 85 to 100, to be up here. It's just not realistic during a 5-minute period of time that you're going to have 100% of your students engaged. You do want to see this bar be much, much higher. And you want to see this bar be 0 or very, very low. So we'd like to sort of change the curve, if you will, about the level of engagement that students have. This is hard to see, but I'm going to blow up 3 just again to give you an example. But again, these are additional strategies that will accelerate student achievement. And here again, across these strategies for now, all you need to worry about, the high numbers here are 18%. So that's less than one out of 5 classrooms were exhibiting any of these. And I want to emphasize again here, we're not necessarily looking for, in fact, you're not expecting to see all of these strategies in place in all of the classrooms, but you would like to see some be much, much higher. And I'm just going to give you 3 examples. So here's 3 of them from that previous graph. And again, these are all strategies that research has shown will drive gains in student achievement. The first one is identify similarities and differences. So can Johnny take 2 different books and be able to explain in what ways the character in book A is similar to book B, and in what ways are they different? So the teacher is asking for sort of a level of analysis beyond just tell me what happened in that story. Summarizing and taking notes is just what it sounds like. That's another strategy. You ask the student to summarize what did we learn today, and that is a way to have the student, the child, bring information together, put it in his or her own words. And the third one is that the teacher can reinforce, and again, that's similar to that checking for understanding, but now I'm saying I'm recognizing your effort as a student in trying and in being engaged, in being part of the lesson, and I'm giving you recognition for doing that. All 3 of those are, again, less than 1 out of 5 of classrooms that we went into. This chart shows the level of thinking. So the word rigor gets thrown around a lot in education. It becomes almost a cliche, and a lot of people, I think, frankly, don't know what that means. So we've defined it this way. So rigor this is Bloom's taxonomy, for those of you who are familiar with that. So the left is what we would consider sort of the lowest level of rigor, but you're just being asked to recall facts, basically. And as you move to the right, it's becoming increasingly complicated to the point where you're creating a whole new, taking the information that you learned or the skills you learned, you're creating a whole new product, whether it's a paper, whether it's a model, whether it's a diagram, you're creating something new from information that you've learned. Again, we're not expecting 100% creation. Certainly, it's totally appropriate, some lessons, to be in the remembering stage, but to drive gains in student achievement, we need to be pushing into this middle area much more than our observers saw. This is the last graph that I'll show you related to our classroom observation. So this looks very promising. So this is that classrooms are orderly and well managed. That means classrooms, just exactly what that sounds like. So there's order, there's discipline. The next one is expectations for student behavior. So again, teachers have very clear expectations, and those are followed through. The classrooms we saw were quiet or appropriately noisy, if you will. There's expectations for student participation. There's positive student-to-teacher interaction, so very respectful. But that last bar, I'll blow that up for you, is respect for cultural differences. Now, this can be tricky sometimes to capture during observations, but and we have some examples of cases where this was not apparent in classrooms. So just to give you an example, in one classroom that our observers went into, a group of students was reading a story that had a lot of foreign names. So I think they were mostly Asian names, if I'm remembering correctly. And the teacher was, I don't want to say dismissive, but was sort of said, oh, well, don't worry about those names, they're kind of funny. So that's a sort of a drastic example of not having respect for unique differences. In most cases, it's not like that. But there are other ways that you can positively demonstrate respect for different cultures. And as you all know, OPS has a huge and wonderful diversity across the school system. So that's an area that we think is warrants some attention.